Yeah, so I guess I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm required by law to say this. So I'm and if you know anyone from Maryland, it's like it works its way into everything and in every conversation. So we treat it like it's that's like a fraternity or sorority event. So from Baltimore, Maryland, I've lived in Atlanta or the Atlanta area for about 4 years now, almost 4.5. And I moved here to work with Walker and Company Brands. So if you've heard of Walker and Company Brands, fantastic. If you haven't, so what we do is we are a head-to-toe grooming brand, grooming company, right? We focus primarily on making head-to-toe products for men of color, specifically Black men, right? Broader consumers with curly, coily, or textured hair, right? So that's broad. It could be almost anyone kind of within that space. So we're head to toe. So we started about 10 years ago with a shave system, which was meant to combat razor bumps, right? Razor bumps, shave, skin irritation. And then we've since expanded into shampoos, conditioners, body washes, lotions, you name it, right? So we sell that. We are at Walmart, Target, Ulta, Amazon, you name it, you can find us there. And so that's where I am now. I started my career working in the agency space and brand marketing. I spent about 4 years, 4.5, somewhere in that range, in Portland, Oregon, running marketing, brand marketing for North America, running for Nike. And so that was for our kid who was a track and field junkie, right? Especially during the Olympics. That was a really cool experience. And so all of that kind of brought me here to Atlanta, to Walker and Company Brands.
Thank you for giving us that information. Out of Chicago, and I understand that you had to mention where you're from, because I'm from Chicago. So I had to say, I'm from Chicago.
Because on the off chance there's someone else in the audience from that same place, and you don't say that that's where you're from, there's going to be some blowback from that.
For sure. And those are some cities that have great culture, right? So I know that when your company started about 10 years ago, really kind of digging into and piggybacking on particular cultural things. I know you mentioned a partnership you had with a particular artist that was really important. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this predates my time with the brand, but one of the very, very things that happened kind of in the beginning for the brand was the brand had partnered with Nas, right? Fio Nas, right? Hip hop legend, Illmatic, and all that fun stuff, right? So the brand had partnered with Nas because Nas is actually from the same borough in New York as our original founder, as our founder. And so there was just some great synergy there. Nas invested in the brand, and then at one point he was working on a track, and he decided to put the brand name Bevel, which is the brand that kind of I work on, in the track. And so the people who worked at the brand went to sleep one night, and there was nothing. And then they woke up the next morning, and everyone's inbox and DMs were and text messages were all like blown up, right? Because the brand got mentioned in this song, across Spotify and music and all those places, and then across the music video. And so that was just kind of a great legitimately organic-ish cultural kind of connection.
So as a millennial, I think that Nas is really cool. But knowing that we're talking about this next generation, right? They may not necessarily think that's cool. That may not be the thing. So when you're thinking about continuing to market to a new generation and trying to still be in touch with like culture and things, how are you taking that into account so that you guys are able to stay relevant?
Yeah, so I love that question because one of the things that I've said for a while now, and my old bosses in here, I've been in here, and she'll know, because we would say this in meetings, like, that's cool, but no one knows who that is, right? Not in a bad way, not in a like, oh, it doesn't really matter, but more in the space of, as a brand, you come through the door, right, with a certain set of consumers, right? They're with you, they love you. As the years go on, they love you even more, and you just become kind of a staple for them. But in order to stay like relevant, you have to kind of forget some of those things that you did in the beginning and start to look for other things that endear you to your audience. And so I think for us, we got, I've said regularly, that's great, but it almost doesn't even really matter, right? If I'm trying to talk to someone about purchasing our products or making our products a part of their lifestyle, and that person is 20 years old, right? So this brand has been around for 10 years. And when we had a viral moment, 10 years ago, they were in 5th grade, right? Cool. So I think it's a challenge, but I think you just have to be able to say, who are we really trying to talk to? And more importantly, I think what matters to them now, right? Like what's important to them.
That's an interesting concept of thinking of what matters to them now, because you have a unique product in that when that kid was in 5th grade, they weren't your customer, but eventually they would be. So how do you frame that in such a way, like when you're thinking about those customers you develop today, they may not be using, but they will be down the line?
Yeah, so I think for me as a marketer, I tend to think about brands and consumers as so, and some of this, I'm wanting to word this right, but some of this is like, when I lived in Oregon, when I worked at Nike, one of the things that kind of drives that ecosystem for them is the consumer decides, right? Like legitimately, they're not thinking about, and they have the ability to do this. They're not really concerned about shareholders, right? But there are very few of us in this room who work in a company who aren't really thinking about, right, those shareholders and stakeholders. So they really put all their time and investment into, okay, where's the consumer? What are they thinking about? What are they invested in? And so for me as a marketer, I'm spending that time thinking about what is the consumer thinking about? Where are they invested in? Because they'll lead us to where we need to go. So to the point of, that consumer was 10 and they weren't thinking about razor bumps, right? And now they're 20 and, what their skin looks like when they go out the door is an important question for them. Now, for me, it's really about, okay, well, where are they? What matters to them? What are they interested in? What are they invested in? Is it the environment? Is it, products that, are fragrance and dye free? Like, what are those things that maybe 10 years ago when the brand started, we weren't thinking about, but the consumer is kind of naturally leading us and guiding us into those places. Yeah.
Okay. So knowing that, you mentioned that you do have a very specific consumer that you guys are marketing to, can you talk a little bit about how important that is and how that's kind of shaping the direction you guys are going in the future?
Yeah, I love it, right? Like, I think I started off by saying, who are consumers, right? So we're very, very focused on the needs of Black men, consumers of color, and consumers with, curly, coily, textured hair types, right? In that order. And any of those consumers, frankly, anyone, right? If you have a beard, you want a good shave, like, we make products that you can use. But from the order of how we're kind of marketing them and messaging them, that's the order. And for me, it gives me a lot of clarity as a marketer, right? It gives me a backstop to be able to work against. I can say, okay, no matter what the tactic is, no matter what the product is, no matter what the retail partner is, I have a filter that I can run any tactic, any campaign, any program through to make sure that it's right? Make sure that it fits. Now, candidly, the pushback I've gotten sometimes from friends and colleagues, right, who work in other brands is they go, well, yeah, that's good for you, but, we don't have that clarity. The pushback that I give sometimes is, I think we all have that clarity. It's just worded differently, right? Like, obviously every one of us wants everyone to love our products, whatever the product is or the service, and buy it. But we all know that there's a tip of the spear consumer that we're all trying to work towards, and we're trying to get their attention. And then there's the ones after that. We want their attention too. And so for us as a brand, we get to kind of focus in on that. And we're not ashamed of it. Because I think, frankly, for me in my career and what we've done at Walker & Company at Bevel, I think it's led to better or more effective work and campaigns because there's always that backstop to kind of run everything.
Well, even knowing that who your consumer is, who's using your products, you do have different buyers though. Because even though that's who you are going to be using your products, you may have moms or grandparents or girlfriends who are also going to be purchasing these products for the different men in their lives, and they want to use that. So what does that look like to making sure that you're inclusive of all of the buyers, the different buyers that you have as well?
Yeah. So in my role, one of two of the things I'm responsible for are I manage kind of our PR and media relations, right, with a great agency partner, but set the strategy, kind of work back with them, and then our brand partnerships and influencers. I kind of manage and run on all of those, and so where I tend to rely on making sure that we're inclusive in that messaging is from a brand standpoint. If we're going to sell this face gel, then we're going to be really focused on the benefits of it, right? And the problems that it's solving. And then when I get out to, press and media, or more importantly, kind of our influencer partners, we sell our products at Ulta Beauty, right? So if you've been to Ulta Beauty, it's a fantastic store. But if you go into Ulta, there are not a lot of men just kind of casually shop at Jones. They're just every time I go in, I'm like, and I'm there for a very specific brand, right? So what I tend to do is with our influencer stuff is we tend to focus on those people who are buying the product for the other person, right? So are you buying it as a gift? Are you buying it for a loved one? Are you buying it for a partner? Who are you buying that product for? And we show a lot of that through our influencer content, right? We do a lot of shop-alongs. So we'll send the creators in when we brief them. We brief them to be able to include an element of showing the store, showing the product in store, right? It can be a second, it can be less than a second. But we want to kind of form those connections with our consumers. This is where you can find us. This is where we are in the store. This is what we look like. And it builds kind of that inclusivity, right? So whether you're buying it for yourself or you're buying it for someone else, we want to be able to show you the benefits. We want to be able to show you where you can find it and why this is the right product for that person now.
So I'm curious because I think these days, especially because we're using social media, we're talking about Gen Z and what's important to them as we're thinking about marketing to them in this next generation, things are moving a lot faster and trends are coming up. These trends are coming up every day and all the time. So as a brand who's really focused around culture, how are you making sure that you're staying on top of things and that you're knowing what's currently the cool thing or what's currently on brand that you guys to make sure you're not getting left behind?
Yeah. This is the part, I love being a brand marketer, but this is the part that I really, really love because you get to be naturally kind of curious about things. So I think one of the things that I personally do, and then kind of broaden out from a brand standpoint, one of the things that I personally do is, it takes time, but I tend to be on a lot of the platforms, right? Even if I'm just kind of hanging out, looking, seeing what's going on, whether that's TikTok, whether that's dipping my toe into Threads, right? Like everyone else or all these other things, because I really just want to know where the consumer is and what they're consuming and what they're kind of engaging, right? That for me, I think as a brand, that kind of informs that natural curiosity. I can remember back to, and I'm I haven't been doing this, for like 30 years or whatever, but I can remember when I just graduated college and I was, getting that first job kind of in the marketing space. It was at a business-to-business software company, right, who is a part of Adobe now. And so I just remember being in there and being like, hey, you should really count on social media, right? And everyone else was like, no, we just got to sell this software to that corporation. And I'm like, but there's people in that corporation and they're on social media, And so in the beginning, I was just naturally curious. This is where people are. And I think the longer I get into my career, the more I have to make a focused effort to go, what's out there? Who are we trying to talk to? Taking that clarity of the consumer and then translating that into what are they reading? What are they watching? All of those kind of things and opportunities. And it's meant as a brand, we turn down a fair amount of things that come our way because, they love us because we did something with Nas 10 years ago, right? Right. But, a Tribe Called Quest may not mean as much to, the person who's like 22 years old, right? As opposed to the person who has grown with the brand. So, and I'm using Tribe as an example. But I want to assure you that if Tribe or Q-Tip are listening and they came to us with something, I would say yes. I have older siblings, so that was Tribe songs were like constantly playing in my house when I was a little kid. So, but again, like it's all about where's the consumer, what are they doing, and then running everything through that lens. And it's led to some great opportunities. We did a partnership with Disney for Marvel Studios around Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, right? We've done other things and partnered with other brands and TV shows and because it's what the consumer wants. So
that's interesting. And I'm wondering too, because it sounds like it's very specific who you're marketing to and what you're selling, but you also want to balance it with thinking about your future customers. But how do you do that when you're staying authentic? Because you keep mentioning like, hip hop and these, rappers and everything who've been a part of Double when they started. So as you're moving forward, it sounds like you're evolving as a company, which is great. Then how do you do that by also staying authentic?
Yeah, so again, I think for us, we're really fortunate that we get to say, these are the problems that our product solves, right? And so naturally, these are the problems our product solves. These are the people who generally are first in line with those problems. And so then we look at it from that lens, right? Making sure that what we do matches up with the problems that we're solving, with the culture that we're building, with the consumer and the culture that they're kind of a part of. And it's led us into some really, really great places. The reality is, if this conversation is happening 10 years from now, there's a different tinge to this conversation only because then you're dealing with a brand that's 20 years old, right? And you're dealing with a brand that's 20 years old and consumers who weren't even around or more when the brand started, right? Those are unique things, but I think you just have to stick to what are we trying to solve and then who is impacted by this. And that's helped us stay true to who we are.
Thank you. Well, with that, I would open it up for questions. Anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
What are your insights that customers doing sports? How are they watching it? I think you got big calf needs.
Yeah. So, yes, I think is the answer to both of those. We've dabbled a bit with athlete partnerships and things. We had a whole barbershop on the main level of the Barclays Center in New York. Oh, there you go. Okay. I did not know that before I answered that question. But we continue to partner right, with athletes and those things, because again, there's overlap in our consumer in those spaces, but it leads us into those conversations. And it also has kept us from other things, right? I love baseball, right? I love baseball, basketball, soccer, football, whatever. But we haven't pulled the trigger on partnering with Major League Baseball athletes and those kind of things in any significant way. The reason being, if you look at the demographics of Major League Baseball, the teams or the fan bases, a lot of times they don't reflect our core consumer, right? And so we try to kind of align and find those spaces that match up, right?
Great question.
Yes, literally, and that's the same thing. What I was. As you think about those partnerships with athletes, can you think of it more as a journey starting with that athlete while they are young, right? First starting to have a problem with it, say you have to sugar, nice, and then you like journey with them through college, then into the weeds. Do you guys ever think of that as a journey with them, or is it was more one-time deals, or do you maybe just explore things? How do you think from a partner?
Yeah, so I think we try to think about it more as a journey, right? A journey that's sort of laced with authenticity. So one of the first things I do when I get an email or reach out, hey, a client would love to work with you. Yes, sure, fantastic. Have they tried our product? No. Okay, cool. I'm going to send you a box. Use it. Genuinely tell us if you like it. Tell us which one you really like. And then let's have a conversation, right? Because we want that authenticity. Now, with the way things are turning, right, with name, image, and likeness, or NIL, that's actually allowed us to be in a better position to start that journey when the athlete is young and kind of coming up. One of our partnerships that we've done the last couple of years is, do you guys know the brand Overtime? Overtime Sports, right? They've got that arena over by Atlantic Station. So we've actually done a couple of campaigns with Overtime and love their stuff because we get the opportunity to work with younger athletes, right? That's 16, 17, 18, 19. We sponsored a 7-on-7 football tournament from them about 4 months ago. And we get a chance to get our products in the hands of that young athlete. They post it, on social because they're excited about it, right? Like it's a big thing for them. They use it. And then what turns is when that athlete makes a decision to go to play football at Georgia, right? Or at Maryland, right? Ohio State or whatever. When they make that decision, now they're looking at who were the brands that were with me in the beginning of this conversation, right? Who are the brands that were with me before I was all over ESPN or I was all over, all of these other highlight machines. And so now we're looking more into a journey. Whereas I would say when I joined the brand about 4.5, 5 years ago, it was very much what's in the moment and what can we afford, right? Just candidly, can't afford Kevin Durant. So let's talk to that person who's just signed their deal, right? As opposed to the one who's on deal 3 and 4.
So can you describe more of your target audience as far as like the age, and then is there a desire or plans to ever go to a younger start younger, like as far as like do time for young kids?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our audience, black men, primarily black men, broad, 18 to 34, right? Really specific. We're primarily looking at that, call it 23, 24, to about 33, 34. Reason being, some of our products can be a little bit pricier, right? We have a shave kit, full kit is $89, right? At 18, if I had $89, I was buying something else. It was not a shave kit. And so that's kind of where we are. I think younger, maybe, who knows, right? I mean, younger than that, there might be something down the line. I don't know. And that's not me being coy. Like, we haven't had that conversation. Because again, the core for us is razor bumps, shave irritation, dry skin. And so some of that we find starts to make its way into the consciousness in that 16, 17, 18 and up range. But I would say partnerships with brands like Overtime, thinking about name, image, and likeness athletes, that has already pushed us into kind of a younger space than we might have been comfortable at several years ago. So you never know.
Or how important is this pattern? Longs, origins, well-being.
Really, really important. So we have some of our earliest influencer partnerships have been with barbers, right? There are barbers, I could pull on my phone right now and I text them, here, we got a new product. Let's send into this. Tell us what you think. Because again, for a lot of people, the barber is where they get some understanding about, oh, I need to do this for my skin, or I need this, or they use the shampoo on me. I loved it. Right? What are we doing?
Salesforce that's actually following.
No. So for the barbers, it's very much organic, and then they purchase the products. They influence it, and then other barbers who we're not working with or who are up and coming purchase the product. Last thing I'll say is we are partnering with a lot of barber schools, right? To be able to get those barbers in the come up. And we're doing some stuff locally with some high schools that are doing like barber trade programs, right? Again, working back into that kind of younger audience and younger space.
Thank you guys